proceed from the deep conviction that we are never doomed to repeat the past. And the passage from one era to another comes with the obligation and the opportunity to choose more wisely. And so, in the face of naked aggression, we are not turning inward. Under President Biden's leadership, we're rallying a global response to push back. We're pursuing intensive and proactive diplomacy to manage our most consequential relationships. We're investing in the sources of our own national strength and those of our allies and partners. We're not turning away from the international economic system, but adapting it to the challenges of today and tomorrow. And we're competing vigorously to shape the future of the international system. That's the broad backdrop, and I want to talk with you briefly about these efforts and why I remain optimistic about the future and our ability to meet the main challenge of our time: strategic competition in an age of interdependence. Let me take you back 2 years ago to this day, when Putin had amassed 180,000 soldiers on Ukraine's border, surrounding the country on 3 sides. He expected a quick victory, that he could send a column of tanks to Kyiv and topple the democratically elected government of Ukraine, that he could weaken NATO and restore Russia's sphere of influence. But he underestimated the people of Ukraine. For 2 years, with support from a coalition of more than 50 partners led by the United States, the people of Ukraine have remained unflinching against an adversary with an economy 10 times larger, a population 3 times bigger, and a military once ranked as the second best in the world. 2 years later, Putin has not only failed in his imperialist quest to subjugate Ukraine, his invasion has strengthened Ukrainian sovereignty, the very sovereignty he sought to erase, and bolstered the very NATO resolve he sought to weaken. In fact, while he sought to diminish NATO, his action grew our ranks instead. Brave Ukrainian soldiers have retaken more than half of the territory that Russia occupied from the start of this conflict. They've repulsed Russia's attempts at an offensive last winter, and they're repulsing one this winter. They've severely degraded Russia's Black Sea fleet, dramatically increasing Ukraine's exports through the Black Sea. They've imposed severe costs on the Russian military, destroying major capabilities built up over decades. And amid all of this, Ukraine has made economic reforms, strengthened its own defense industrial base, and accelerated its integration with the West. Of course, the fight is not over. Russia has laid dense minefields across the front lines, making it harder for Ukraine to make major territorial gains. With China's help, Putin is mobilizing Russia's defense industrial base, putting the country's economy on a wartime footing. And Russia is seeking more weapons from both North Korea and Iran, which violates multiple UN Security Council resolutions that Moscow itself voted to put in place. But as President Zelenskyy has discussed with President Biden and as Secretary Blinken and I discussed with him earlier today, the people of Ukraine are steeled for the struggle ahead, and the United States and our partners will continue to stand with them. We're expanding training for Ukrainian troops. We're working to secure bipartisan support for the necessary resources to supply Ukraine with the weapons it needs. We're ramping up our own defense industrial base while denying Russia access to critical inputs it needs to do the same. And we're also innovating, and this is a critical point, working with our partners and especially with the private sector to help Ukraine solve the key technological challenges of an evolving battlefield, like electronic warfare, drones, and demining. Together, we will build on our sanctions to ensure that even as unsustainable war spending masks underlying weakness, the economic costs for Russia continue to mount. And we will keep supporting Ukraine's diplomatic efforts to secure a just and lasting peace that protects Ukraine's sovereignty and territorial integrity in line with the principles of the UN Charter. Because we've seen time and time again what happens when aggressors are allowed to take a neighbor's territory by force and don't pay a price. They keep going.